Another episode of these crazy people that just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. Justin's here with me. I'm Tom. And what are we talking
Hey,
about?
hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Meat Mosaic with Sir Thomas and Squire Justin here. Um, we are meat warriors, meat aficionados, uh, meat militia members,
Mm.
um, holders of meat. Um, the puns can kind of keep on going, I suppose.
Members of the meat cult.
Members of the meat cult, that's another one too, yeah. And of course, the Meat Mosaic. Please continue to like, subscribe, and comment on the channel. Ask us your questions. Send me your hate mail. Check out some links in the bottom for other ways to reach, engage with us. Um, and today's topic uh, is kind of like food is medicine, kind of the state of the current medical model, maybe. Um, And if I get my chance, I would like to take the piss out of some overnight oats. So stay tuned
Yeah.
if I get my way.
Overnight oats.
Overnight oats, yeah. So I shared with Tom, I think, a pretty popular graphic that's been going around on X, probably, I think Facebook too, maybe a few other places, of it's showing a trend over the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades, something like that, of the amount of money or those involved in healthcare being of more of an administrative role rather than actual physicians, um, which is doubly troubling because you try to file an insurance claim and it's still a nightmare. Um, you try to have some kind of service done. Usually you got to get like a referral and then another referral, and then that referral has to check with the insurance you have, and then what's covered, what's not covered, or maybe a portion is covered. And then Tom, right? Even if you think you're covered, you might not be covered. I think
Yeah,
Tom
yeah.
had
You
an
go
experience with that lately.
you go pay a copay and then you get another bill 3 months later. Oh, by the way, your insurance didn't pay all this. And all you did was talk to somebody for 4 minutes.
Right, right,
Sometimes you
yeah.
don't even know who you're talking to because you're not even talking to the person you made an appointment with.
I mean, oftentimes it's a nurse practitioner, which I don't consider a nurse. I mean, a nurse practitioner is a doctor. No, no hate towards them. Um, they're not an administrator, but there's just all the backgrounds. There's just a lot of medical bloat. And then on top of that, the doctors that we do have, I don't think it's that they're purposely not trying to be very good. I think they're just poorly trained, just because of the money and the interest that went into the medical textbooks, what have you, the actual material, what got accepted as what was right, I suppose. And unless your doctor has an open mind and willing to listen to other things besides what they were taught in medical school, they might not be particularly helpful. Although I'll always caveat that with that there are still some fantastic doctors out there doing some fantastic things, as well as if I go break my arm, if I get another car accident, I'm going to the ER. I'm still going there. There ain't no amount of meat I eat or dairy I drink or cheese I eat is going to relocate a dislocated shoulder or something like that. And so, still necessary. There's still some good stuff there. And usually, the number one complaint has to do with chronic disease and the ultimate life enders. Your heart disease, your heart attack, your strokes, your aneurysms, and your cancer. I think when we were talking about the medical issues, I think we're trying to tackle those as well as chronic disease, which the Western model seems to have a lot of struggle with, aside from prescribing a new, I don't know, biologic or something like that. That usually does quite a bit of damage to the immune system. Some of these biologics that even you see advertised on TV. Of course, now the big hit thing is, GLP-1 inhibitors and all that for weight loss, which is originally for diabetes and previously used with bodybuilders. And so it's just I think you see a lot of issue when X drug is mass produced and mass marketed and mass consumed. I think those three are a serious issue. I have a love hate, well, not a love hate, but I am biased towards medications. I'm more or less in my personal decisions anti-medication. Um, Other people feel differently, and I have also at the same time talked to people that have been in like a motorcycle accident and they are still taking maybe a medication like a painkiller, muscle relaxer, or something like that. And it's like, you're in a severe motorcycle accident and you're lucky that you survived. If that helps you get through the pain, I there's carnivore also has its limits. There might be other things this particular person could have done. In the meantime, the medication was helping them, and they used it as prescribed. And I'm certainly more than happy to encourage that under those circumstances.
So I managed to dig up the graphic that we were referencing earlier.
Yeah.
Here you go. So basically, that reddish brown color represents management, and then the green represents physicians. So there you have it.
Right. And what does that graph mean to you? Does that match your personal experience, or do you think it's wrong? What do you think, Tom?
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, you see all these buildings. You go to a medical office, see all these buildings and all these offices, and most of them aren't doctors or nurses or PAs. So, yeah, I don't know. It's massive increase of people behind the scenes. And that's a huge part of the cost of medicine, right?
Right.
Seems like education is kind of the same way. It's like there's more administrators than there are teachers in a lot of cases. So.
Right.
Yeah.
A very, very similar problem. I like how in 1970 there were 0 managers and 0 physicians. So there you go.
Well, we used to talk about that weirdness of there was a period of time when anybody could call themselves a doctor. You didn't
Right.
necessarily go to medical school, but most of them probably didn't. And then they decided, and the conspiracy, as it were, starts with Rockefeller's writing the textbooks, and then medication or pharmaceuticals, surgery, therapies like that dominate the practice ever since then. So, and the story goes that the Rockefellers start in petroleum to get into chemicals, and the chemicals gets into pharmaceuticals, and they're basically helping support their business endeavors by writing the textbooks and referring physicians to treatment primarily with pharmaceuticals. Right. Yeah. And then we can add to that we know that fat was vilified based on bribes given to people to fake science at some notable Ivy League schools. Not that much money. Put the blame on fat and divert it from sugar. So it's paid for by the sugar industry. So that kind of all leads us back to, well, we need fewer doctors. Like you said, if you're in a car accident, you want to go to the hospital. You want the allopathic medicine. But most of the time, we need a lot less medicine if we eat the right food.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. I know personally I've come off a good maybe not a good number of medications, but some medications and supplements, eating carnivore, and feeling better than ever, more or less. I mean, so starting carnivore, before carnivore, I've talked about this 1,000 times, but I was will make it 1,010. The migraines being my primary issue for coming to
Mm.
carnivore, and I'm really not getting them anymore. I think I had one 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that, and it was, I want to say it lasted maybe like half a night or something, and it wasn't particularly awful. And oh, that's right, I got a cold, and so
Mm.
I've noticed that I get a migraine when like my sinuses get all like jacked up, from like a virus or something. That seems to be the only real trigger. I notice I get like these headaches that I swear I'm like, oh no, migraine's coming on, but then that will just go away, and I'm not particularly doing anything different. Um, and then I'll note, and then it'll just be like, oh, hey, I had a headache like an hour ago, and now it's gone. That's pretty cool. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And, I've been doing this, and I'm not even as strict as I used to be. I'm eating quite a bit of things that I probably shouldn't be. Probably compared to the normal person, it's still like, what are you talking about? But for myself, from where I came from and how quote unquote disciplined, so I try to stay away from the word strict, as disciplined as I used to be with it, I've certainly loosened up, and I'm still doing well. So that's really cool, and I believe wholeheartedly that the body does heal, um, and it really does take a long time. I've been doing this, well, going on year 6, so in April it'll be 6 years, of fairly, disciplined, especially that first 3 or so years. Um, and now I'm every year it's like exponentially better, kind of. And there's been ups and downs, not doubts necessarily, but I've had some other health struggles during carnivore, and a couple of car accidents actually. And
Mm.
so there's been a few other things in there too that may have prevented me from healing as quickly. I don't know. Um, but I say this all just to say stick with it. I see a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm 1 year in, or I'm 6 months in, or even I'm 2 years in. And if you've been, growing up in 30, 40, 20 years of daily damage, you know,
Mm. Mm.
because it's not that the foods that they were eating, they only ate once a year. It wasn't just Christmas and New Year's and their birthday that they had cake or a donut or something, right? That was probably somewhat regular, especially when you throw in fruit and vegetables, seed oils, what have you, right? So that daily damage to your body, I think legitimately can take 3, 4, 5, maybe even a little longer years to heal. So stick with it. You are healing. Just look for the other things that get better. I really think, at least for myself, two things that I noticed within the first 6 months was energy and like mental clarity, and like the lifting of like depression, kind of this like dark cloud. Those are the three that started to lift about 6 months in to it. So, which wasn't my main cause, and that was cool, but I was still getting, migraines that really sucked at the time.
Mhm.
And so stick with it. It's really easy to get discouraged whenever you're doing something new. Um, and but I've but that feeling 6 months in definitely helped me keep going. And I'm not sure if there's anyone that's fairly disciplined 6 months in doesn't feel any different at all. I will say that would be kind of surprising to me.
Yeah,
Not,
let me comment
go
on
ahead.
something I've noticed a lot. People start, and then some people just have this expectation that everything's going to get better right away.
Right.
But some things get better faster than others, right? And I go on about that. But then the cycle I noticed is that people like, oh, yeah, I still haven't lost as much weight as I want, or this is still bothering me, or whatever. And then they go back to eating the way they used to, and they go, oh no, I felt so much better. and then they go back. It's obvious to them that going back to just eating a regular, Western diet or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's really even Western anymore because it seems to be everywhere. But they realize, oh my God, I was feeling better, and the gains I made, I'm losing, and and then when you stick with it, because sometimes some things take days, some things take weeks, some things take years to fully correct, but almost everything trends towards getting better. So.
Yeah, I agree, and that seems to be now. Now there are, of course, anyway. We can say that for another time, but those that did it for a couple of years and decided that fruit and honey is what they needed, and good for them, I guess.
Well, and I'll just comment on that. I mean, when it comes to just burning sugar off fast, if your metabolism is high and you're very active, you're gonna notice less of a problem from consuming the sugar. You're sure you're going to get some oxidative stress in the cells. And if you're eating fruit and honey, then you're getting plenty of fructose, right? So you're going to notice that collagen doesn't get repaired as well. So even though people feel good, you often notice when they go back to eating fruit and honey, they don't look so good because the collagen, when you eat a lot of fructose, you tend to notice, especially in leaner people, that you see it in their face, because their body just can't repair the collagen, which basically holds us together. It's the structure of our bone. It's the tissue that the cells attach to. And when you have fructose in your system, the fructose binds to the collagen and the body can't repair it. So the science has been done and it's been repeated, and it's very clear. The human body is not designed to continually metabolize fructose. So
Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, definitely. And teeth don't particularly like fruit and honey either.
Yeah, I mean, don't we all learn as kids that sugar's bad for your teeth, and that's why we get cavities? And so here's where I say that's caused by streptococcus, which also gives you strep throat. So when you eat starches and sugars and stuff like that, the streptococcus grows in your mouth and it attacks the enamel on your teeth. And streptococcus and candida cohabitate in the film in your mouth, break down starches together, help each other thrive. And of course, you can wind up with fungal infections if the candida overgrows. So there's a couple of reasons right there not to eat sugar. So, and am I not correct that we were all told as kids that, candy and sugar is going to rot your teeth, give you cavities?
Right, definitely. And I had an interesting internet discussion with a bloke earlier this week that was saying that no, you drink your orange juice, but to protect the teeth, you rinse and spit afterwards. I was like, okay, so ancient man was walking around grabbing oranges and was also nearby the ocean or the stream so that they could wrench and spit so they wouldn't get a tooth infection and die. Is that,
Well, of
is
course,
that the story there?
ancient man did not have oranges like we have oranges, so they were nasty. So he probably wasn't eating them. That's another point I like to drive home is that nothing in the produce section in your store is created by nature. They've all been heavily manipulated by man. Most of the things that we think are healthy fruits and vegetables were originated as food that was inedible. And when I had the little thing about, I originally stated that, raw olives are toxic. And then technically, I guess they're not toxic. They're just too bitter to eat. So you have to cure them. And then, you know, apples were tiny little things that were full of seeds and they weren't as sweet. And same thing with all the other fruit, bananas, you know, all that stuff has been engineered by man to be edible, to be sweeter, to have fewer seeds, to have thinner skins. You know, like watermelons just have really thick rinds and a lot of seeds and not much meat, as we call it, or flesh to eat. And all that's changed. And so it's just the common sense sort of backstory of all those foods were foods we did not evolve to eat. Of course, if you don't believe in evolution and you think we were just poof, showed up in a garden somewhere full of fruits and vegetables, and maybe this isn't the show for you, but
Well, dominion over every beast, right?
right. I mean, the idea of a sweet orange goes all the way back to 300 BC or something like that. So it's not like they haven't been around, but like a lot of foods, they didn't spread till much later, you know, and a lot of the foods we eat every day actually are New World foods. So the only people eating them were people that were in the Americas, you know, pre-Columbus. So and even
avocados, tomatoes.
Yeah, something like an avocado might be the closest thing to something that you could just pick off a tree and eat. There's a few other ones, but they're rare and they were seasonal. I mean, who doesn't know that fruit's seasonal, right? Same berries. There's berries and grapes and stuff, wild grapes and stuff like that, but they were seasonal. They were rare, and they were spread out all over the place. You know, so you only got a little bit here and a little, and wherever you lived, there was only a small sample of fruits that you could eat for a short period of time, and you had to compete with all the animals and the bugs and everything to get them. So.
Well, and I think the number one way most of humanity has consumed plants is actually in the form of alcohols, breaking it down, fermenting it. Because in some cultures, I want to say this was in Egypt, may have been somewhere else as well, the beer was safer to drink than the water in some cultures.
Yeah, well, because a lot of the fruit wasn't palatable, but they knew that fermenting it became more palatable and more fun. So that was where a lot of the fruit went originally, was to making, you know, alcoholic beverages of one kind or another. So, yep. And, you know, a lot of, you know, anybody knows anything about wine, there's really only certain varieties of wine, of grapes that are worth making wine out of, you know. And a lot of those grapes that make really good wine taste terrible to eat. So
I've got to just throw it out there, just because it is Chinese New Year. Well, it's going to be the week of Chinese New Year. This is a pretty good wine from Costco. It says 2025 on it. 2025 is the year of the snake. So if you
it's
see
a snake on a staff, huh?
Yeah.
On there. Happy Lunar New Year, is that what it says?
Yeah, Happy Lunar New Year, aka Chinese New Year. So cheers for those that are celebrating. If you're watching us in Asia, probably gonna have the week off. We don't do that here in the United States, but there's, I think, past it. Well, I don't know if they'll do it this year because of the fire, but if I'm right, Pasadena had a Lunar New Year festival, like a lantern thing that they would do yearly. I want to say it was Pasadena. I could be wrong. Maybe it was Arcadia. No,
could be. I don't recall. It's probably what you call it, Monterey Park.
Now I think it's perfect time for Tom's Fire Watch down there in the south, the Southern California. What's the report this week?
The report is any minute it might start raining. So
okay.
We're hoping a little bit of rain. Unfortunately, people just keep starting fires. I lost count of how many people were arrested starting fires, and I think just today they arrested a guy that had started 3 fires and they caught him.
Well, I'm glad they caught him.
And I mean, everything from setting trash on fire, setting hillsides on fire, setting houses on fire. So on top of all of the fires, and of course, I don't know, the only one I know reasonably well. The origin of was the Eaton Canyon fire. There were down power lines that blew down, and of course, that's always been a problem here. And I believe the good old state of California sued the power companies, so now every time the wind picks up, they shut the power off. But they don't always shut off enough power. And the Santa Ana winds are a thing you grow up with here. They're they're usually warm, very fast winds, like violent winds. But as you probably heard on the news, sometimes the gusts were 100 miles an hour this year, which, let me tell you, 50-mile-an-hour winds are fast. 100-mile-an-hour winds are almost unimaginable. It's the kind of thing like that'll accelerate a palm frond through the air to somewhere around 112 miles an hour. Like you see a 12-foot long palm frond just flying through the air, and you're like, how is that not impaling someone? How is that not going through a windshield? I mean, when I was a kid, they used to blow the street lights apart. The wind would get so bad, trees fall over, huge trees fall over in the street. They fall on houses, they fall on cars. Fortunately, not too often do they fall on people, because usually when you hear that loud cracking noise, you run. So, but I have been out walking and seen giant palm fronds just fall out of trees, like huge. Like when you see them up in the air, especially in those really tall trees, you don't realize how long they are, and they come down and they hit the ground in front of you, and you realize, they are literally 10, 12, sometimes 15 feet long. And so they weigh quite a bit, especially, they're basically, plant material, woody material, at least in the core. And sometimes when they're green, they're really heavy. So, and unfortunately, palm trees catch on fire really easy. So when they got a bunch of dry material up at the top, one little ember gets in there, and then poof, the thing turns into a Roman candle, and then there's thousands and thousands of embers blowing out of it, and then burning palm fronds everywhere, and on and on and on. So yeah, it's been a lot of drama here. A friend from Pasadena had posted a private video on Facebook, and this was 2 days after they got to go home. Their home was still intact. He was walking around his neighborhood putting out smoldering debris that was just laying around the neighborhood, and of course some of his neighbors' houses were gone.
Right.
So it's very real. And I heard that they got footage of a guy on a hillside that they believe started the Palisades fire, which was the biggest. And then at the end of it, there was a fire just about 4 or 5 miles from my house that we were really worried about, because the wind was blowing in our direction. But fortunately, that one, I think, got contained by the time it got to about 40 acres. And I don't think that one actually burned any homes, but lots and lots of people lost their homes, and it's a big problem. And hopefully things will get better, because I think there's gonna be a lot more pressure to stop dumping. For people who don't know, the state of California dumps a bunch of water in the ocean, fresh water, that we really could use better. we could use it for putting out fires, perhaps not being so dry. The middle of California used to be a giant lake, and then it's partially naturally drained, then people drained the rest of it. It was Lake Corcoran originally, if you want to see it. It's huge, and then it shrank down. They called it Lake Tulare, and now there's a tiny little Lake Tulare compared to the old one. I mean, I think Corcoran was like something like 25% of the state covered by one lake, and it wasn't that long ago. And then, of course, the Lake Tulare that followed wasn't that long ago. And now we instead of letting the water flow down the state to the south where it's needed, they dump it in the ocean, because they're trying to protect the fish, which it seems like it'd be a lot cheaper to keep that fish alive some other way other than letting the state burn down. That, and there's lots of farmland that could be far more productive if they had more water. So anyways, hopefully that gets sorted out, because I think we're kind of on the precipice of it getting sorted out.
Nice. So, I hope so. That'd be really good news.
Yeah. In fact, next time we should talk about what the impact we think this administration will have on all things carnivore.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
Yeah. I'm excited mostly about the new people that are brought in, more so than just the president himself. But So, I don't know if I think posted it, but I think Joel Salatin got appointed to the FDA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that looks to me, I look at that and I go, hey, I think, regenerative agriculture, especially in the cattle industry, is probably going to get a leg up from this. So, I mean, it's something we've been a big fan of for a long time. You hear about White Oak Pastures and some of the other ranches where they're restoring things to the, original prairie grass, taking out the trees that aren't meant to be there, and then they rotate the cattle on the pastures, and they bring in chickens and pigs, and then all the wild animals come in, and so they're able to get cattle ready for the market mostly without. Some people still send them to the CAFOs, the confined feeding operations, but a lot of them don't have to anymore. So the cows just eat grass like they're supposed to, which is good for the environment, because if you build up the prairie grass, then you sequester carbon, because prairie grass has a tremendous root system. It can be, regular prairie grass can be like 6 feet long, but some of it's more like 8 and 12 feet long. And that's all built from carbon that's pulled out of the air. So, and then of course, when you put the cattle and the other animals in the land, you get the microbes that absorb the methane. So the methane gets trapped by the microbes and stays in cycle. Of course, methane has a relatively short half-life. It's, all that being said, the cattle also fight desertification, because they carry moisture around with them and expand the prairie grasses where the deserts seems to want to intrude, because of course it's good to keep the soil covered, to keep the topsoil alive. And of course, if cows are just eating grass and you're not dependent on row cropping for grains and on and on and on. So Don RFK Jr., he's a fitness guy. He was an environmental attorney, and now he's kind of turned his eye to food, and I think that I know the Biden administration actually banned the red dye that we were talking about,
Yeah.
but I think that would have happened under the current administration as well, because it's already been banned in so many other countries. It looks like, and it's like, why do you really need a certain colored dye in the food to get people to buy it and eat it? I don't think so. Maybe you make a few extra bucks, or maybe it's cheaper or something. But I think a lot of stuff like that's very suspect is going to be pulled out of the food supply. So I'm hopeful about that, and I'm also hopeful for the cattle industry to do well. Of course, when you put chickens in the cow pastures, then you don't have the parasite load for the cattle, so that's a good thing. And I was talking to a friend earlier today. I don't have the story, but one of the ranchers that was running the chickens behind the cattle said that they don't even have time to pick up all the eggs, so they give the eggs away. They're not even selling the eggs because they have so many eggs from the chickens.
Oh, wow.
And the chickens also help control weeds, which is another thing that, so you don't need the pesticides, the herbicides, you don't need the pharmaceutical dewormer for the cattle. So a lot of people, when they have, things like ducks and chickens and guinea fowl and stuff like that on the land, then the cows don't need to be dewormed. And a lot of guys are going, if they do have to deworm, they're starting to use charcoal instead of pharmaceuticals, and so on and so forth. So hopefully we'll see an improvement in the quality and the price and the availability of beef and pork and chicken and duck, so I think there's going to be a lot of support for that.
So I did look it up, and it looks like for the FDA is a Martin Makary, MD, who's at Johns Hopkins.
Well, I think I have to look and see what position it was for, and I'm sure there's more than one, but I'm pretty sure if you go to Joel Salatin's webpage, it was on there.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope so. I mean, that sounds fantastic. I just wasn't able to pull that particular up the way I tried to search it. But yeah, I remember his name being thrown around for something. I just couldn't remember what it was. I don't remember it being.
It might be a Department of Agriculture position or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Maybe something like that.
It was all over Bookface
Okay.
because I posted it.
Got it. Okay. Well, I want to bash on some oats if you don't mind.
Bash
Um,
away.
so I don't know, kind of out of nowhere. It's probably not out of nowhere, but I've got work colleagues and a couple of they're female, they're in their late 20s. Um, and they're just always, well, not always, but sometimes talking about overnight oats. And then at the store, I've just been seeing like a lot of deals and a lot of stuff on overnight oats. And so I'm just like, what the? Did they rename oatmeal? Like what happened here? And I guess like if you soak oats overnight, maybe it like sprouts them or something, and it's supposed to be like more nutritious. Um, but I just I remember a kid eating oatmeal. Pretty much the goal of oatmeal is what can you add to it to make it palatable. So like I mean, I think at one point I poured straight sugar on oatmeal, like sugar and
Yeah,
cinnamon,
yeah, brown
peanut butter, peanut
honey,
butter,
peanut butter.
honey, peanut
Oh yeah,
butter,
maybe some milk or something.
right, some milk, yeah, and I was like overnight oats, like what the
It's
it's like
just
this need
I think
for
it's just a new trend in preparing them.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and let's go back to the old joke. I don't know, we talked about this a million times that when we were kids, at least when I was a kid, seemed like Wilford Brimley was on TV. If you guys don't know who he is, he was an actor. He's a guy with a big mustache, kind of a portly fella, and he was selling oats on TV. One of the big brands. And so he was hucking oats on TV for a long time, and then when he surfaced again in commercials, he was selling diabetes supplies. So he was like, "Yeah, call and get your diabetes supplies delivered." So that's kind of and there's plenty of videos out there and memes out there about this. But oats, again, another thing we didn't evolve to eat. You notice that the popular oats are either the instant oats or the steel cut oats. Yeah,
Right.
oats are really tough. And ask anybody who's got horses. Oats will even give horses diabetes. If you feed a horse too many oats, it gets diabetes. So human beings didn't evolve to eat oats. Oats weren't really available. The first grains that were available, like wheat, barely started 10,000 years ago. Took a while to spread, kind of enslaved areas between, let's say, wheat and rice. And rice, oddly enough, originated in Africa a little later. Kind of enslaved the whole planet into tilling the soil and, row cropping. And a lot of we think about the expansion of the Roman Empire. A lot of that was to find new land because they'd overfarmed the land they had. And of course, when we look at the mortal remains of people, their size and their joint disease and even the cranial capacity shrinks the more agricultural products you eat, the more you cultivate. The faster you destroy the soil, and the more decrepit and unhealthy human beings become. So get back to the meat.
Back to the meat.
Don't eat
Are oats grown in like a bush? I don't think I even remember looking up how oats
Yeah,
are
it's like a
grown.
grain, but it's got a real hard kernel, as it were. It's real hard to grind. You can't just chew on it. So yeah, you almost never see oats in the unprocessed fashion. So they have to be processed. So
And of course, the claims of the overnight oats is, plenty of fiber, fills you up, quote unquote nutrients. It's always blown up to be this fantastic kind of health panacea. It's good for low blood sugar, probably because your body can't digest it, so it's getting a
well,
little sugar out of
in
things.
theory, if you're eating grains that are unprocessed, they tend to break down at different rates, so it tends not to spike your blood sugar as much. But that just means you're getting a dose of sugar over a longer period of time, which
Right.
isn't necessarily all that advantageous because instead of releasing a big jolt of insulin to combat that high blood sugar, you're just continually releasing in smaller doses of insulin. So it's not really much better. It's still gonna eating things like oats is not gonna improve your HbA1c or anything like that, because the sugar's still gonna be in your blood and it's still gonna damage your red blood cells. It's still gonna rot your teeth. It's still gonna cause indigestion, because you know what? We didn't evolve to eat oats.
Oats, yeah. So yeah, just wanted to take a minute to bash on some overnight oats, just because I find the whole thing kind of silly. You know what you can have? You can have overnight steak. You just put a raw steak in the fridge, throw some salt on it, let it sit overnight. A steak takes 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, I guess, to cook. I don't know, depending on how raw you want it.
I'm a 6-minute steak kind of guy. 3 minutes aside is perfect.
There you go. And then
And I'm not opposed to eating it
crack
raw.
an egg. You could definitely do an overnight steak. There you go. I did go out to lunch with some coworkers, and we went to the Roadhouse. And I ordered carnivore, 23-ounce porterhouse T-bone,
Nice.
and a side of pork ribs.
Dang.
And they were like, how can you eat that? Like, how do you do it? And
That's a hell of a lunch.
people are scared of eating that much meat, and
Yeah.
like it's really like a lot of psychological, and they're like, how do you do it, and how do you do it every day? It's like, well, it's like one thing you just get used to it, you know.
Yeah.
The other part is, I feel so much better eating this way, so it's easy to keep that up. And a 23-ounce porterhouse cooked raw is damn good. I mean, is very delicious. Eating meat, eating steaks especially, but hamburgers too, of course. This food's good. I mean, the food is, I enjoy eating, and I feel like there's not enough of us carnivores. I mean, there obviously are, but just the joy. There's a lot of joy in eating what we eat. I'm really happy whenever I eat. And I think one of the reasons why is I'm genuinely hungry. Like, if I'm gonna go eat, like, I'm actually hungry, versus, eating because you're bored, or eating because something like sounds good. You
Mhm.
know, it's like, if you're hungry, you're gonna want to eat it. And there's a couple of people that are like, man, I really feel like I wish I could try that. And it's just like, just try it. And it's just a lot of psychological blocks.
Yeah,
There's
I got a buddy at the gym, Nathan, and he's been curious about carnivore. He's talked to about it, and then I started sending him pictures of my food prep, and he's like, "Oh my God, that looks so good." When he saw seeing the pictures of what I was making and eating, as opposed to just telling him about it, had a huge impact on his attitude towards it. So he was already, very curious about it and liked the idea, but so it wasn't a hard sell, but just seeing the pictures of it really tilted things. So
yeah, and so I think just that exposure, and maybe I'll start posting pictures of my meals in the office. I don't know. We'll see. The office group chat speed. What did you all have for dinner last night? See what I had, you know. But yeah, keep up, keep eating the meat. That's kind of bare minimum. I mean, I mean, maybe we could come up with a hashtag or something trendy. I don't know. Overnight hard boiled eggs. I don't know, something. I mean, the kids want to do something fun. I get that. Although I don't think setting oats in water overnight is particularly fun, but hey, everyone gets their kicks a different way.
yeah, right on. Well, do we have any more comments about how food might be medicine?
No, I don't think so. I think that wraps it up pretty well. It is medicine. Heal thyself 100%. Um, and even if you're not perfect or whatever, it's not a competition. I think the meat is healing. Just keep it up. You'll make it. You can do this. And just start small. You know, you can even start with the low oxalate vegetables. You know, something like berries, like raspberries or like blackberries.
Well, you know,
Have
I always tell
less.
people just try one meal. Just do one meal.
Yeah,
Just steak
yeah.
and eggs or steak and ribs for one meal. Just try it. And most people go, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And I'm like, "Well, just try it and see how you feel." You know, and then usually they're like, "Yeah, I felt great. That was awesome." And then they're like, "All right, let's do 2 meals." You know,
Right.
yeah. So, and you know, you were talking earlier about getting better, and you know, I kind of commented on expectations, but let me run through what it was like for me real quick. So, I started experimenting low carb in 2016, and then tried keto, and then just felt like I wanted to eat more meat, and then I found out there's this carnivore community. I was like, well, what? You know, it's like blew my mind. So I tried it and I was like, it was great. The first thing I noticed that went away was probably my biggest problem was arthritis. I had really bad arthritis. I had it in my hands, my back, my neck, um, all over. Like it was crippling. Like couldn't, you know, to get sciatica really bad. And I would say probably within 2 weeks, it was gone. And I mean, I had been suffering for years of going to the doctor and complaining and just getting, you know, anti-inflammatories and painkillers and stuff like that, you know, and just not sleeping good, not wanting to do things because, you know, it was hard. I eventually gave up going to the gym, the whole 9 yards, and that went quick. So somewhere, you know, in there, let's see. So by the end of 2016, I was gone carnivore. I didn't experiment when I went back to keto for a short period of time. I think I was going to try it for like a week or 2 weeks, and I went a couple days, and I was like, oh no, carnivore's better. So it's already, how long is that now? Like that was so all of 2017 to be end of 2016 till now. So I think I'm at something like 8 years
Eight
plus.
years.
Yeah. So and then you know I've mentioned in the past you know one of my big problems have been anxiety. So when I got diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, I didn't even know what it was. Like I thought everybody was that way, but that has gradually gotten better. And I would not say um you know karma made me impervious to it, but I certainly uh, I'm certainly far more resistant to it, you know, not bulletproof, but you know things come along in life and trigger things, you know, but
Right.
for the most part it's gotten a lot better and it continues to get better. So trying to think what else. I mean in the beginning you know I started getting leaner pretty quick, but I'd already been out of the gym because of the arthritis for a while and didn't go back for, I think I'd been in carnivore for a whole year before I actually went back to the gym. And part of that was just, you know, I was be going to a different gym and everything. I'm not real good at like getting into a new thing with new people and new crowds and stuff. So it's a little crowd avoid, little new people avoided there for a while. But now ever since the COVID lockdown, I've worked out every day pretty much. I miss a day here and there just because it's unavoidable, but I basically work out 7 days a week. And you know, in the getting leaner, I'll get leaner for a while and I'll plateau, and then I'll start getting leaner again. But I put on a lot of muscle since then. So I've gotten very strong. I'm 54 now, and I'm probably easily in the top 1% of strongest people in the world, which sounds insane, but then when you look it up and you realize most people don't work out, so they're not that strong. But I lift every day, do treadmill every day, you know, and little stuff like walk the dog every day and stuff like that. So anyways, I could barely move when I was in my, God, you know, from the time it started in my late 30s up into my 40s. So I was probably, I was in mid 40s when I started carnivore, mid to late 40s. So it's, now I'm 54 and like I said, I feel good physically. I don't have, physical pain. I get a sore muscles once in a while because I'm working out, but I don't have any joint pain and I recover very quickly. And, I'm still getting leaner, still getting more muscular, starting to see more. I see new veins all the time now, which is kind of the new thing. So not too many people my age are getting veinier and veinier, I was like crazy looking legs now. I got veins going up into my thighs, which I've never had before. I didn't even have veins on my legs, and I've always had like good strong calves because I used to work out really hard. And now I got all kinds of little muscles and stuff I've never seen before, and veins going from my hands all the way up into my shoulders. I never had any of that before, even when I was younger, and before I put on a lot of weight. It was never had anything like that. So things do get better. You can make changes, and like Justin said, a lot of it's just hanging in there. And like I said, if you fall off the wagon, you're going to find out how much better it was just eating meat, because your body's going to tell you, which is normal. A lot of people fall off the wagon, and some of us, we just occasionally eat something we know we shouldn't eat, then we don't feel so good. But it's a rare thing. It's usually a special occasion, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think that's normal too. It's part, what? This isn't meant to be a prison sentence,
No.
And you know what you're in for. So, there's no award for being the purist. There's a lot other thing. A lot of people are like, they think, oh, you can only have beef, salt, and water for the rest of your life. And I think that whole thing, the Lion Diet, was really started to help people figure out what they couldn't tolerate, not to make it a lifestyle for the rest of your life necessarily, right? It was more of a complete elimination, particularly for people with severe autoimmune diseases, right? So I and most of the people you hear talking like that aren't even meat based, but just on the Lion Diet or something like that. So anyways, there's always critics out there who think. I see comments from people who apparently have no idea what they're talking about all the time, usually on other people's posts, but sometimes on mine too. Or we'll probably get one on this video here.
There you go. That'll be
You're
fun.
not good enough, so therefore you cannot be carnivore or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Always trying to take away someone's card.
Yeah.
Carnivore card.
So, right on. Yeah. A lot of things get better, don't they? I mean, a lot of little things, like you and I both had allergies really bad, right?
Yeah.
And we used to notice that cycle. You start sneezing, get a stuffy nose, and pretty soon you got a sinus infection. Then you're back on the antibiotics or whatever, suffering. And that stuff, I mean, my allergies almost completely gone until I got COVID. And now I still get some sinus stuff after COVID for whatever reason. And of course, it's windy here. It's all kinds of dirt and stuff blowing around this time of year. So sneezing happens, but it's nothing like it was in the past. Nothing. So
agreed. Yeah.
And then indigestion, of course, we talk about that, the heartburn and stuff like that. It's gone. I used to have heartburn all the time. Everybody's like, yeah, it's normal, it happens. Take some of this, take some of that, blah 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 blah. And then you find out it's just the food. You're eating the wrong food.
Right.
So, anyways, everybody, thanks for watching or listening. Feel free to leave us a comment. Always send Justin the hate mail.
Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Leave a comment. Ask a question. Let us know what you are thinking about, whether it be carnivore or other things. And if there's anything we could do, or there's a topic you want us to address, please let us know. And there is a back catalog of over 400 episodes. So check those out too.
I think this is going to be episode 405 when this comes out. So I think there's a couple that haven't quite dropped yet that are pending. So you probably see a couple new ones coming out before this one even drops. So I know maybe this will be 407 now that I think about it. So over 400 videos. Woo! Whoever thought.
Ooh. Right.
So anyways, thanks everybody. Wish everybody good luck and a healthy 2025.
Yeah.
And keep your blood gooses nice and level, not too high. And whatever you do, don't fall
fall down the carb hole.